I don't want to become known as the coronavirus guy, but I do have some. This is kind of a point of personal interest. I heard few comments this morning about the University of South Carolina that is extending their spring break. Well, let me give you some information. DHEC and the Center for Disease Control and Governor Henry McMaster were all three brought in on this discussion. It just so happens that the university here in Columbia is the first to take spring break this year. The USC President Caslin has been in conference also with Clemson University, with other universities in the state, because they're all in the same boat. And the point is that a lot of these universities, and especially Clemson and South Carolina, have international students. A lot of these international students now are being called home or will be coming back home shortly. Here in Columbia, we have 32,000 students, and it was supposed to be kept secret until they could make an announcement this morning. However, somebody leaked the information last night, and I do understand some of the faculty was against doing this, so I don't know where the leak came from, but I'm having a letter that was put out by the university, copied, and I will get you all a copy of that so you'll have something to relate to. And let me say that this disease has a 14-day incubation period, and that comes into play with spring break. So that's why President Caslin asked for the university to be able to extend spring break. He also has asked faculty to be able to create their own curriculum online so that students could still continue their studies online if necessary. And it was by far not meant to cause concern and create panic amongst the folks in South Carolina. It's just a matter of precaution. And again, it wasn't done in a vacuum. It was done with CDC, DHEC, and the governor's approval. So, Mr. President, I'll yield for any questions.
Senator from Charleston, Senator Sin, what purpose do you rise?
See if the senator would yield.
Yes.
Yield for a question, he does.
So I might have been one of the few who got an email from from President Caslin, but I got it through a Senate page. This was, I would say, around dinner time, 6, 7 o'clock last night, asking me whether they were actually going to be able to extend and stay away from our chamber and basically not come to school and everything else because she had gotten a copy of this email. I said, well, I haven't seen it. Can you send it to me? She sent it to me, and sure enough, it's President Caslin saying, thank you for writing to me. Students are the most important. In fact, I'm going to give you some advance news. USC is going to have an extended spring break. So I was quite surprised to get this information from a Senate page. Here we are, we're utilizing Girl Scout services because our pages are all out. Not that, we're going to crumble or anything with the pages not here, but I was quite surprised. Did you know that the page would have this kind of information before we did? And did you know, Senator, I followed up with the university officials just a few minutes ago, and I asked for them to actually put a date on the email because it didn't have a date, but it did have a time. And based on the time, I have the feeling that it was probably issued yesterday, not actually the day before yesterday. And did you know, Senator, what I got just now on my phone was a response from the university saying that the press release they sent out to the Post and Courier last night was draft. It was in draft form and not intended to go out. Do we have any explanation as to why the university is not keeping those of us in the chamber, at least, in the loop?
Senator, I don't. I just know that they had drafted the letter. As you said, you saw a draft. Somebody put the draft out before. It was supposed to come out this morning, so my understanding is the draft was leaked to the media.
No, sir. What I have is an email that was sent just to a random student and her mother by President Caslin, basically letting the cat out of the bag, and it looks to me like it was done quite a while ago, at least probably day before yesterday. But my bigger question, Senator, is if this is so important that we are going to extend their holiday, how is it that we're just, I mean, if I can tell you back when I was in college, I would have just kept the party going for another week, and I'd still be coming back, and I'd still have the possibility of bringing the coronavirus to all of us. So what is that 1 week going to do?
Senator, I don't know. I would assume that they took the advice of CDC on determining the incubation period and when they could bring those students back with the least effect is all I can tell you. Now, you mentioned the email.
Is that who told them to do it?
You mentioned the email. I would only assume that they felt it was necessary to put it out to the students so that their parents wouldn't have so many questions when they read the paper this morning. So I just assumed they would.
No, it was an email to one student. One student had written, and that's what got the word out. That's what caused the big leak.
Senator, I don't know. I hadn't seen the email. I can't answer that.
Senator Sena, are you through with your questions? Senator from Richland, Senator Harpootlian.
Of the state of South Carolina, and we're flapping around worrying about who got let out from where. By the way, I'm very happy with the Girl Scouts. I think they're doing a hell of a job. But why do we care what goes on at one of our colleges or universities? What's going on at Clemson or College of Charleston or, God forbid, over in Florence, Senator from Florence? I mean, why are we spending time debating this? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Senator from Edgefield, Senator Massey, what purpose do you rise?
Mr. President, if the senator from Newberry's finished, I'd like to be heard very briefly, hopefully.
Senator from Charleston.
Right, I was not finished, but I yielded to my elderly senator because I'm concerned he's going to get coronavirus. And he's not supposed to use potty mouth anymore. Did you know? Did you know? Senator, my question, though, is even deeper. It is really, are we to the point with coronavirus that we all need to shut down and stay home? Because if we're going to do that to the college's major university, which, and I understand, tell me if I'm right or wrong, the board didn't vote on this, and the teachers and faculty didn't even know about it. So if we're to that state, do we need to tell everybody stay home, and that would include us?
Senator, maybe we can get you an answer on that. I don't know the answer to that, but maybe we can get you an answer.
Senator from Richland, Senator Jackson, what purpose do you rise?
Mr. President, was Senator Yield?
Yes, sir.
Senator does.
Senator, did you know that yesterday, the president of USC had an opportunity. He was over here. We spent time going over his budget, and it is surprising to me that a student found out before a whole lot of others. If he wanted to, he could have shared that with the senators on yesterday when he had an opportunity to actually do that, but that did not come up at all. Are you aware of that?
I was not, Senator.
Man, would you agree that that may have been an opportunity to at least notify us prior to notifying random individual students?
Senator, I would agree with you. That would have been an opportunity, but I don't know what thought processes that the president used in coming to this conclusion. I would not stand here and second guess him. I would just assume that he did it for the right reasons, and we would have to ask him to get you that answer.
And then finally, Senator, did you know that yesterday during the hearing, there were some other things that we were really concerned about, and I said to the president that I'm going to give him a free pass because he's new. But are you aware that free passes eventually run out?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Senator from Edgefield. Senator Massey is recognized. Please give him your attention.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I appreciate the comments. Look, I do think, to the senator from Richland's point, I do think it's important to talk about what's happening at Carolina.
Senator, I insist on order. Very, very important subject. I insist on order. Take your conversations outside. Senator from Edgefield.
I do think it's important to talk about what's happening at Carolina in this regard because it's the flagship, and when they do something, it gets attention, right? And it's got a lot of people stirred up and talking. Look, I think it's important that we and I've said this before, but I know this surprises a lot of people, but there are actually folks who listen to us when we say things. There are a lot of people right now across the state who are scared. But it's important to remember that this is an easy virus to prevent if you just use typical hygiene. Wash your hands. Don't cough into your hands. Don't touch your face. Because that's the way that it spreads. It spreads, and I got this from the state epidemiologist, so that tells me that there's some legitimacy to it. It spreads by droplets. So if you sneeze into your hands, if you cough into your hands, if something like that, and then you shake hands with someone and that person touches his or her face, that's how it spreads. This is not going to spread by breathing on somebody, right? That's what the epidemiologist told me yesterday, right? It spreads by droplets, right? This is not a panic situation, right? People need to calm down. There are right now still 9 confirmed cases in South Carolina. 7 of those 9 are all about one person in the Kershaw County area. The other 2 were folks who recently returned from Italy. Right? This is not some widespread reason for panic. Right? Just use some common sense. Wash your hands. Don't cough on people. And so this is why I think it's important about what happens at Carolina. When they do stuff like this, when Richland 1 made this decision a couple of days ago talking about there were students who were being treated, which was not accurate. They were talking about canceling classes, which was completely unreasonable. It sends this message to the public that there's something we need to be panicking about. Right? That is not the reality. If you talk with DHEC about these things and you ask them questions and you listen to what they're telling you, if you talk to doctors, this is something that is contagious, but it's easy to prevent that from happening if you take those steps. There is no reason for us to be canceling anything. But from conversations with DHEC and the state epidemiologist, it's a hard word for me to pronounce, there is no reason for us to be canceling school. There is no reason for us to be canceling events. There's no reason for people to think that this is a major catastrophe for which they need to be panicking and boarding up their house. And I'm concerned that we are sending that message to people. But we need to use common sense. You need to wash your hands. Don't cough into your hands. Don't shake hands with somebody who's just coughed into their hands. Right? If you think, man, this is common sense stuff, right? If you think you might be sick, stay home, just in case. But that's a good idea anyway, isn't it? Maybe I'm not the best person to say that. After a few weeks ago. But if you listen to the doctors on this is what they are saying consistently. Now, I know there's a bunch of stuff in the media about it, and everybody's freaking out. And there are places that are worse than there are here. Right? But here we have still 9 confirmed cases. 7 of them are from folks who were in close contact with each other in one area in the state. The 2 others are just traveled internationally. Y'all, so I would encourage you, and I understand hopefully that the governor's going to have a press conference very shortly to talk about this some more, and I'll let him do that. He has more of a platform than I do on that. But because it came up, I think it's important to know, look, DHEC has a plan. They're dealing with this. They seem to be doing a very good job of dealing with it. They understand the tests. They've been involved in all the testing. We now have more companies that are testing. There is a plan to deal with it, and it seems to be working out, but panic is not going to do anything positive for anybody. So I felt compelled to make those comments, and I would encourage us not to do anything that's going to incite panic or encourage people to freak out.
Senator from Colleton, Senator Bright Matthews, what purpose do you rise?
To ask the senator a couple of questions.
Senator Hill for question.
Sure.
Senator does.
Senator, would you believe that I agree with you that we should not panic?
I hope so.
Would you agree that an ounce of, prevention, whatever, you get it, right, is worth a pound of cure? Would you agree with that? Well, and would you agree that the epidemiologists have all opined that a person such as you or me could come into, we are pretty healthy, could come into contact with a person who might have coronavirus, and we would not, we could have symptoms and we would not be as seriously affected as someone who, say, might be elderly or has underlying health conditions, isn't?
You could be a carrier.
And we would not even know that we are a carrier, correct? Isn't that what they've opined? You said you believe them. I heard the same thing, most of what you've heard. So let me just take this one step further, because I agree we should not panic. But just on last week, when this state had the coronavirus, we had, and if I recall correctly, because I had a good time there, a reception. It was the Myrtle Beach reception. Everybody's grazing over the food, eating, enjoying themselves. I agree that I can control myself coughing. I could agree, and wouldn't you agree that I can control certain things? But do you realize that after I realized the state of South Carolina had one in Charleston and one in the senator from Kershaw's backyard.
There are 7
Did you
there.
I get it, 7 today. Tomorrow, you go to sleep. So my point is, do you realize not knowing exactly where that because at the time they told us on Thursday, did they not? They weren't able to tell us where that person had been. So I had no way of knowing whether or not that person had been at any of the events around here. So do you remember me telling the entire Senate that it was my mother's 97th birthday?
I don't.
And, well, I can understand you wouldn't remember, but on last Thursday, it was her 97th birthday, and I was excited about it, and I related it to something and when I asked a question. But going back to what the epidemiologist said, wouldn't you agree that even though I have taken the precautions you have so eloquently talked about, the fact that they have no effect on me does not mean that if I'm around someone else, like my mother, who I ended up not going to the Saturday function because I was concerned about all the people I'd have been around during the week, wouldn't you agree that that exposes people, unbeknownst to us, that might have underlying medical health problems to exposure? And
Senator, I think that everybody needs to partake of a level of personal responsibility. If you are sick, you shouldn't go out. I would say that even if it's the flu. If you're sick, you should probably stay home. If you are coughing, don't cough into your hands. Wash your hands. If you are sneezing, don't sneeze into your hands. If you have a fever, stay home. Those types of things. Because the symptoms seem to be coughing, sneezing, and a fever. But I don't think it's necessary for the entire state to stay home. I understand there have been a few diagnoses. From everything that I've heard from DHEC, and I trust them on this, just use basic hygiene and you will be, because it breaks down. What I'm hearing is it breaks down. Simple soap and water will break it down. It kills it, all right? But it's still best not to cough into your hands or touch your face, do those types of things. Take those precautions. But I don't think there's a reason that we need to just hole up in our houses now and be afraid to go outside.
I agree. Well, Senator, do you remember, what was the last hurricane that we had that came but never came, never struck South Carolina? And everybody boarded up, and I think the governor, out of an abundance of caution, shut down a lot of county offices and basically shut down most of the states so that we could have evacuation routes available to everyone. You know, I supported the governor in that decision, even though we never got any of the hurricane it turned.
Well,
and
then I would
in that
encourage
regard,
all of us to listen to him.
In that regard,
he's getting updates multiple times per day. Let's listen to him. And he's telling people there's no reason to cancel classes. There's no reason to cancel events. He's telling people that there's no reason at all to panic. He is telling people that. He's going to tell them that again in 25 minutes. There is no reason to overreact to this.
Senator from Charleston sent to send. What purpose do you rise?
To see if the senator would yield.
If a question.
I will, but I will. I'm happy to yield, but I'll just remind us again, there are people watching, and they're listening to what we say.
I'm very well aware of that, Senator, and I will tell you that I agree. I don't plan to go shut myself inside the house unless something happens and I have a temperature. But what my point really is do we really know? Because I sat there in the Medical Affairs Committee. I listened to everybody for an hour telling us the same thing you just said, wash your hands, blah, blah, blah. But I called the governor's office, did you know, this morning, and I wanted to know why the university was now extending by a week, because we've been told, use common sense. You don't have to be scared. And I think I just heard the senator from Newberry stand up here and say that the governor and President Caslin had been working with CDC and with DHEC. So who's got the latest version? I mean, they've decided to extend, to basically extend spring break, which I don't even know how that helps. But I think communication is key. And
I agree. And I would encourage everybody, listen to the governor.
The governor's office said that they told Mr. Caslin to prepare, and he gave all the colleges some discretions, but to prepare, and that was the decision that was made, was to extend school.
The governor's going to have a press conference at 3 o'clock. I don't know exactly what he's going to say, but I will be amazed if he says anything other than there's no reason to cancel classes, there's no reason to cancel public gatherings. People need to wash their hands, take care of themselves, but there's no reason at all to panic.
And do we know if President Caslin is going to be at that press conference? Because somebody needs to explain, because we're hearing different things.
I understand, and that's the one. I don't really want to be up here talking about this because I think it's sending a confusing message to the public. But I think in this case, look, this is when you really need a governor. Right? You need somebody who's getting regular, frequent updates. The governor has been doing that. He is going to give another press conference today. I'm sure that the press will be there and attend, and that they will report on what he says. I hope they will do that. I hope that word gets disseminated. But if the governor says something different than what I've said, then we should listen to the governor, because he has more information. But I will be very surprised if he says something significantly different than what I've said. So I agree with you, Senator. We need some clarification on some things. There's some confusing information coming out. I think that's what happens when people are scared. You start having rumors. There was a rumor about Clemson shutting down yesterday. Fortunately, Clemson put out a statement today, so that's not happening. All right, there's got to be clarity on these things so that people don't get scared, and that's the only reason that I came up.
Senator from Darlington, what purpose do you rise?
Very briefly, see if the Senator will yield.
Senator,
so what I hear you saying is that you got to exercise good judgment best you can. You know, I have a daughter in Spain. She's on a plane coming home. How many people are at the University of South Carolina? 50,000? Yeah, a lot. So, and I'm concerned is that one of the things that's happening with international students, like my daughter, the schools are saying you all can go, but you know we're questioning that as to what happens if they go to an airport and they get on an airplane. And so I get concerned too. I listen to all of the questions, and it makes legitimate concerns. So we've got to exercise judgment. I'm concerned about the international exchange of students at USC that are and other universities that are around, because we have a lot of international students that are coming back, going.
Not just international students. There's a lot of international travel. Business individuals in South Carolina and around the country, and I get that. I guess I do think it's important that you have one consistent, clear message. And I think the person to deliver that's going to be the governor, and I think he's speaking again in just a few minutes. I
don't know if you know this, but Clemson won today.
I saw that just a minute ago. I didn't see the...
And the ACC tournament's going on, and they haven't closed it down.
Right.
And so, but I thank you for what we're doing. I think we should stay posted and as to what's going on. And
I think we should all. I think that's a good point. I think we should all pay attention. We should all stay posted, because, as you very well know, people are going to call you and ask you what's going on. Or people are going to call all of us. And we need to have as much information to be able to give the same answers every time. And I think from that perspective, we need to listen to the governor because he's got more updates and more information than the rest of us have.
And in general, you will end up coordinating with the folks on this side and the clerk to help communicate to the Senate anything that we don't know and through him by the president, correct?
I mean, I think if there's anything that the Senate needs to know, the president's certainly going to take charge on that. Yeah.
Senator from Richland, Senator McLeod, what purpose do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a couple of quick questions for the senator.
Senator Field for question, he does. Senator McLeod?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you know, Senator, that I have a pre-existing condition that really concerns me about the coronavirus and what we don't know?
Okay.
And did you also know that I've done a little research on Dr. Lee, who discovered the coronavirus, and found that not only was he only 34 years old, I couldn't find anywhere that he was known to have had a pre-existing condition. So that kind of debunks some of the things that we've already heard about this virus.
Well,
did you know?
I did not know that information. I'll just say again, and I did not mean this to be condescending at all, but I think we need to be, people are watching us. They're listening to what we say. Let's try not to say anything that's going to cause people to panic about stuff.
Well, did you know, I think that the panic comes from South Carolinians' distrust of government and what they've seen, what has already been aired nationally and is now, of course, making its way to South Carolina because the virus has already made its way here. Did you know that the original, the test when Dr. Lee discovered coronavirus, he was tested after treating a patient who was asymptomatic, from what I understand, and the test results were negative. Did you know?
I did not know that.
Okay. And also, he was also called in by the government and accused of spreading rumors and false statements. So there is, I mean, I can speak for me personally. Did you know that I saw the President of the United States on national news saying that basically he wanted to keep the thousands of people who were on board, I can't remember the cruise line, but the ship, to keep his numbers low. Did you know? So that is what creates the panic.
I'll say this. I have not had any reason at all to believe that Henry McMaster is not going to be straight with us. I think he is listening to the experts. He is listening to the doctors, to the scientists on this, and he is going to relay that information to the public, and I think that's what he needs to do. I don't think that I know of no reason at all that people should not trust what the governor has to say about this.
Did you know that I did not address the governor's communications about this
I heard
virus?
What you said.
Specifically, I said the government.
That's right. That's right.
And do you understand why?
What I'm
saying, based on what we've seen and heard so far.
What I'm saying is the governor is going to give a press conference at 3 o'clock, I understand. He's been getting updates. He's been listening to the experts. I think it's important that we all listen to him so that we have accurate information, and then we can disseminate the accurate information.
I sincerely hope that that is the case, and I hope that he is being given accurate information. I have no reason to doubt that that the intentions of the medical professionals that are giving him the information are good. I just wonder what we still don't know about this virus. And of course, I don't want us to panic either, but did you know it's concerning when we're dealing with a global pandemic. That has not happened during my lifetime. that I'm aware of. So did you know, and do you have any thoughts about that?
No, I mean, I understand the concern, and that's why I think it's important that you have somebody take charge and that people can listen to that person about the information, which is why I suggest for South Carolinians that we pay attention to what the governor says on this issue.
Well, did you know that I would hope that we don't get to a point where we politicize this and make it a partisan issue based on what we're seeing at the national level, because I do think that that would be disastrous and catastrophic for all of us.
I don't want it to be politicized either. I agree with that. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator from Edgefield.